Hi, I'm Rebecca. Welcome to my channel, Reading ID. Today I'm going to be talking about my 5 top favorite science fiction books I read in 2019. I should say this is my most read genre across most years. This year, 20 out of 86 books that I read this year were science fiction. A lifelong sci-fi fan, you might be able to tell from this is my iRobot t-shirt, one of my many bookish t-shirts. I want to start with 2 fast-paced series that I've been recommending and gifting a lot lately. And the first one is the Murderbot series. You may have heard folks talking about this as the 4 novellas in the series have been coming out over the past few years, and there will finally be a full-length Murderbot novel happening in 2020, so that's exciting. This centers on a security bot who refers to themselves as Murderbot. It's a very self-aware kind of story, and the security bot ends up hacking their own programming to be able to watch their favorite series, their favorite shows, their favorite media. So this might sound very relatable to you, and it is. The tone is very self-effacing and wry, but it's kind of set against this actually sweeping adventure where we end up getting a lot of commentary on kind of big corporatization and, privacy concerns, and I think some commentary on gender identity and neurodiversity. So it's a very fun, easy read, but it does have some bigger things to say or to explore. By the way, I read this series while on somewhat of a bookish retreat with some fellow librarians over the summer, and one of my friends, she had brought the series along, so I ended up picking up the first one and rereading it. This was actually the only book that I reread in 2019. I had read it for the first time in 2018, and then I zipped through the rest of the series. And even our fellow librarian who doesn't read a lot of sci-fi did pick up the first one and enjoy it. Another series I really just couldn't put down and sped through was the Themis Files series by Sylvain Neuvel. And let's see, I listened to this trilogy on audio with a full cast, so it's a wonderful way to experience it. It is somewhat epistolary because it is written completely in transcripts, interviews, news releases, things like that. This is done so well, and the story just feels very immersive and tightly plotted. So it actually reminds me of how I hear people describing the Illuminae Files series, so I should probably pick that one up as well. And what can I say about this one without spoiling the series? So beginning in Sleeping Giants, it follows a scientist who discovers an alien artifact, and eventually this motley crew that are handpicked to study and use the artifact. And the second and especially third books really expand the scope of the story, and it really worked for me, the places that it went. So another book that was a favorite this year was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Now this was actually my first time picking up a Brandon Sanderson. This seemed like a really great approachable way to start reading Brandon Sanderson. It's a YA science fiction as opposed to some of his really meaty fantasy novels, which I don't read a lot of. I really loved it. It was page turning. The world building sets up this gritty colony, and there's an underdog teen protagonist, and she's training to be a fighter pilot, and you can really see how Brandon Sanderson is kind of a master at elevating some of these very tropey elements and just synthesizing it into a ripping story. I was not crazy about how the ending kind of packed in just so many twists and turns, and just new plot developments that really could have been an entirely other story. I wasn't really a fan of the way it set up the sequel, and I just didn't enjoy the sequel as much. But it does look like most people who loved Skyward have been loving Starsight, the sequel, so I seem to have a bit of an unpopular opinion there. All right. The next book, To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I actually have a bit of a special guest, Nadia. I'll insert that footage there that we filmed. You'll see, by the way, we're wearing some more bookish science fiction shirts. We have some matching Frankenstein t-shirts in that video clip. Play us a science song.
I don't know any.
Hello.
Hi.
I have brought a real scientist here because when I read, well, you read Becky Chambers' first book.
All of them. Wait, not the last one.
Neither of us have read the last one
yeah.
for some reason. But yeah, so we've both read and loved the first two books in the Wayfarers trilogy, that's what it's called, right? And we, so when her new novella came out, To Be Taught of Fortunate, I read it, I really enjoyed it, but I was like, this is a love letter to scientists doing science. Like, here, you read it.
I loved it so much. I listened to the audiobook, and it was, like, very intimate. Like, I don't know, you know, the reader did a great job, like, talking to me.
Do you want to tell the world what kind of scientist you are, by the way?
No.
No? It's secret.
I'm a cell delivery
Own
person.
it, girl. Own
I
it.
am a cell courier.
You do real science. You make cells spin around in fancy machines, and you look at it and things, and you like count the cells.
Sometimes I count cells. Becky Chambers, what I liked about it was I recognized a lot of so she writes about this in the like an interview afterwards.
Oh yeah, the interview with her mom.
She like consulted with her mom,
great.
a real scientist. So definitely things where I can like recognize like not just skills or like techniques, but just like it really feels authentic, and it felt like things that I'm doing now, but like how could they be expanded upon in the future or applied to discovering new planets or new I mean even just ecosystems on this planet, which are still very interesting and very unknown. That felt just very exciting and like recognizable, and I guess I should just be reading more of that, so please read them and then tell me about them.
I will.
Yeah,
BookTube, can you recommend some more like sci-fi books for scientists? Because I would enjoy reading them and actual scientists want to know. Thanks. All right, thank you to Nadia for being my special guest, who, if you didn't see my BookTube newbie tag, she's my close friend and housemate, and in that video I explained how she's actually the inspiration for this channel, and I sprung the news on her on camera that I had created this BookTube channel, so please do check that one out if you haven't seen it. For her reactions alone are just priceless. The last book I want to talk about was a real surprise for me, and thank goodness for the Disability Readathon. Really helped me to find this collection that I would never have picked up otherwise. The Uncanny Magazine special issue, Disabled People Destroy Science Fiction. I haven't thought of myself as someone who loves to read short stories, but this collection was spectacular. So the stories here just bring so much creativity and visions of the future and meaningful representation of differently abled bodies and chronic illness, neurodiversity, etc. So it includes, I believe, 4 different sections. So there was fiction, personal essays, media critiques, and poetry. So basically the main through line is that given the literally unlimited sandbox of SFF, it feels pretty fucking terrible to be a disabled reader and not see yourself imagined in these expansive futures, you know, full of talking cats and shit. There's also, you know, a lot of convenient medical cures for disabilities that kind of border on eugenics in the science fiction that is out there. So many stories and essays really centered on the idea that science fictional spaces themselves should be more adaptive rather than totally erasing disabled identities through cures and stuff. And that's just as our real world should be. So I think one of the essays talked about having ramps in space. So I'd love to see more of that in science fiction and speculative fiction in general. And I will definitely be picking up more short stories, science fiction short stories in 2020. So if you have any recommendations for collections, please recommend them down below. I'd love to hear it. And if you have any recommendations in general for sci-fi that I might have missed that was at the top of your list in 2019, please let me know about it. All right, thanks. And do check out my other top 5 lists. I have one out for middle grade fiction, and the next one that will be coming up is top 5 queer reads. Thanks. Please subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next video.